Hello, people of the internet. This is Brian B again with Talking with Brian B. And today I'm coming back with you this evening to make a part two of the God Stories series. And today we'll be talking about how God restored and reconciled the relationship that I have with my older brother Keith. And so, to give context, growing up, Keith and I were really close. I would have considered him my best friend. Um, at that point, just we were really close, and we actually together, the typical older brother and little brother shenanigans. But we were close, and he is someone that I always admired and such. And then that was our childhood. Then we fast forward to 2018, where we was able to live together. We ended up being to the same college, Full Sail University. Both pursuing separate degrees there. We lived together there as roommates. And that was the first time that, I was outside of living with my mom, and so that was an adjustment. But that experience ended up going fine. And then fast forward to 2020, ended up moving out. We were moving separate. It just happened that last circumstance that happened that he ended up moving somewhere else. But then um, we're living separately for about a year. I'm living by myself, but then my lease is up. But then we're like, hey, let's live together again. But then this time was different. You see, at that point, things had changed because it became known that the way he was living his life was quite reckless at that point. Um, and it kind of hit a tipping point to where trust was broken. And then I feel like I just couldn't trust him anymore, and then we were just not getting along at all. We were always like arguing stuff like that, and it was just not a good environment. It it came to a tipping point where it was something where he wanted me to do something for him in a moment of just being like a brother, like, hey, let's hang out, sort of deal. But I just didn't feel comfortable with doing that with him at that moment. And then he had said that, like, oh yes, we will not, things will never be the same between us. At that moment, he truly was right, and that things were just shattered, and it just kept shattering worse and worse, breaking worse and worse. Um, then the worst of it all, it came like when he fast forward to say it was the year 2022, no, sorry, 2023. Fast forwarded when he needed my help to live, to have a place to live. He hit a low point. I could have helped him, but in that current state of mind that I was in, just feeling like I didn't want to get myself in that situation again and get hurt again. I selfishly denied him, and then that just shattered it just even worse. And then it seemed like it was beyond repair at that point. Um, but then got to rewind a little bit more to how there's significance in that because upon the difficult living situation that I was with my brother, um, through that, God actually used me in the moment when we were living together a second time after the first time, and that was in the year of 23. Um, yes, it was 23 at that point, and so at that moment, it was really hard for me to live with him because we were right on top of each other. He was staying with me in my one bedroom apartment. And that's kind of part of the reason why I denied him, in that future time because it was just not a good situation. But the one good thing that came from that was just the fact that God used me to share the gospel with him one night, and then so somehow, some way, he clicked with him, and then he's like, "Oh, I want to accept this. I want to know Jesus." And then I walked with him the prayer of salvation, and at that point, he truly became saved, and it was a celebratory moment. I remember vividly. Literally, I hugged him. I'm like, all of heaven's rejoicing right now. Then he's like, bro, what are you doing? Get off me. It was something that it was just he didn't quite understand the magnitude of what just happened, and now he does to the present day. I mean, he's so thankful to me. But honestly, it's all to God really because just the fact that God even used me in that situation when I wasn't even acting as good as a brother as I could have been. I could have been a better host. I could have been a better brother. But God still used me in that moment to help facilitate, sharing the gospel with Keith. And then the Holy Spirit invaded his heart and then became saved. and that was amazing. And then so we'll go back to the previous situation that I mentioned, which was a little bit later in that year. I denied him living with me because of that previous moment, like those moments of living together. Like it was really hard, and I was about to move out from my apartment. But I was selfish. I selfishly just did that, and after some time, reflecting, I think that I certainly should have helped him in that moment. I should have, because that would have been the godly thing to do, godly thing to do. But God still used, even though I could have, I should have made the different choice. God still used that. God provided a way for him, so he wasn't homeless. Keith was afraid that he was going to be homeless, and that's why he was so upset with me that denied him because he thought he was going to be homeless. But God made a way. He was able to have a home to live in and stuff like that, and things ended up working out well. But in that moment, though, after denying him and stuff like that, we hadn't talked in a while. We weren't close. But then, he ended up getting married. And then to his his current wife, and she kept telling him like, oh yeah, just be patient, and he's told me this now, and so I can share it now. But it's like he wanted to repair the relationship with us, and I did too, but I just couldn't find it within myself to trust him again, and I just realized that it was just going to take time. I mean, he really does that too. Then eventually he just became patient with me, and I could see a change in his heart after he accepted Christ, because you see that he's being more patient, being more loving, all these things. He was exemplifying the fruits of the spirit. um, so through that, through this time and healing and just a lot of prayer on my end and his end, God restored our relationship. So now we're back to being like really close and that best friend status again. Because in the current, it's great. I go to Keith for advice all the time now. We talk almost every night, and it's just amazing. It's just a blessing. He's given me some good, godly counsel, as of late as well. And so I'm just so thankful that God reconciled that relationship with Keith, because I thought it was done. I thought there was no repairing it. But God is a God of reconciliation. And we read about that in 1 Corinthians. Paul mentions that he's the God of reconciliation because God first reconciled us to him through the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And so if you are curious about that, want to know more about that, about why Jesus Christ had to die on the cross and how God reconciled us to himself through that, then I'd love to talk to you more about that in the comments. Absolutely love that. My goal with this channel is to just exemplify just how God has moved in my life, and just be able to share the gospel and have a great place of fellowship where we can talk about the Lord and what he's done in our lives, but also really just also just chop it up with some good football talk too, which I'll say is my next video that I'll be making will be about football, and so we'll get that going as well. I want to have both of these two things married together, so eventually we can make them together, and we have a community of people who love the Lord, also love football, and also people who love both of those things, like me. And so that'll just be amazing. That's my goal with this channel. And so that is it. That's the story of how God reconciled the relationship between myself and my brother Keith. It's just so amazing, and just and another thing I'll say is that just going back to like my brother accepting the Lord is that when we were going through those really hard times, I was just thinking like, oh man, Keith is just so far off. Like it would take a miracle for him to accept the Lord. But then I just kept saying to myself like, okay, if anyone could do it, it's the Lord. I know he can, because he can do all things. And just through time and patience and stretching, God used me as a catalyst um, to help with his work. And so I'm just so grateful that God really used me as a vessel in that way. I don't deserve it, but it's just his grace. Just like his grace don't deserve it, we none of us deserve it, but he gives it anyway. And we are, he wants us to participate in the work that he's doing here on earth, in preparation for the kingdom to come in heaven. And so it has eternal significance. Um, and it's just so amazing. And so, yeah, just thanks so much for listening and watching this video. Um, Please like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. And I'd love to chop it up with you guys in the comment section about, this video, or about football, about whatever. Love to just have some good fellowship going on. So yeah, thank you so much, and I hope you have a good rest of your day or night. Thank you.